What is happening, everybody? Welcome to today's episode. Why did I buy a mini truck? As you can see, we have all the body panels back off of the truck. We have our new front fenders on the way. Our old ones were just kind of hammered. They were really just for mock-up purposes. So our new fenders, when they get here, we'll already know where we need to drill and cut. I also need to go ahead and do those rear shock mounts, so we got to get those coming. But as you can see, we have a lot of wiring going on, and that is because while we're waiting for the rest of the stuff to show up for the body, we are going to get all of the harness routed. We're going to simplify some things. We're going to go ahead and get everything run. So hopefully we can recover the dash and get that back in, get the cluster in, and I'd like to do some initial tests before we go ahead and move on to wiring up our auxiliary fuse panel. So as you can see, there are a lot of spots where the harness comes in and back out of the vehicle. On all of those locations where it does transfer from inside to outside of the cab, we're actually going to be putting a Deutsch connector. And what that's going to do is just kind of make this harness a little bit more serviceable and make it so that we can pull it out in portions. Another thing that's going to be really great about that is if we ever need to pinpoint any electrical issues, it'll be as simple as isolating certain portions of the harness, like the whole front harness, the cab, and the back harness. So it'll just make things a lot easier as far as diag goes. It'll also allow us to kind of tuck some of this stuff, like the panels that normally sit inside here. I'm not sure if we're going to put the fuse panels in. I know that we're going to have like the ignition coils mounted over here, and some other stuff is going to obviously have to run through here for the lights. I'd actually like to go ahead and run the harnesses along the outside so that they're not in the bay. I'm going to try to keep this as clean as possible in here, and that'll be really easy to do, especially if we have different junctions like we're going to be passing through right here. There's another spot on the side over here that we pass through. So I just kind of want to make things a lot simpler and easier to work on. We are also going to be testing things like the tail lights. So I brought a set of lights in here. We're going to get the compressors mounted up. We're also going to get the air tank in its final spot, whether it be inside or outside. Not 100% sure yet. We're also going to go ahead and make sure all of our lines that go to our rear bags are set up. I'm thinking about doing a hard line just till it reaches inside the cab, and then we'll go ahead and do a 90-degree connector, and then from there it'll kind of simplify things inside the chassis. Inside here, you guys know we have kind of a spaghetti of our soft air lines. I'm not 100% sure if we're going to keep them as soft air lines. I think when we do some of the 90-degree connectors, it'll kind of smooth some things out. I kind of like the path that they flow. Really easy to kind of navigate which one goes where. I did also bring some more soft line out, and we have a whole roll of hard line in case we decide to go that route. Up top there, I do have a couple things that I want to wire in, but that will be once we get everything done on the factory harness. Essentially what I want to do is get all of the original wiring back in here. We're going to be opening up all of the loom for the whole entire harness, checking to make sure the wires are good. We're going to retape, reloom it. We're going to put brand new split connectors on it. We're just going to pretty much make sure that we have no issues in this harness whatsoever, any rub through spots, damage, wear, broken wires, corrosion, whatever. I want to make sure that this is solid, that the truck has its own separate harness from our auxiliary fuse panel, because our auxiliary fuse panel is going to run things like our air compressors, our door popper switches, our switch panel, the gauge clusters for the PSI for the bags. Pretty much anything that's not in the factory wiring harness is going to be isolated through that secondary fuse panel somewhere back here. I just don't want anything tapped in. Nobody likes chasing wires. Everybody hates when you see something spliced, like even this right here. I have a brand new one that runs up here, but even here, I mean, this is just tapped in. This was a power wire for a tachometer that sat over here. So instead of coming through here and cutting it and putting some heat shrink and then soldering it, I have just another one that's not messed up. Considering before the main issue with our truck and the reason our truck ran kind of rough and was just a nightmare to begin with, and we wasted so much time before was on the wiring. So I want to make sure that this wiring is good to go. That's part of the reason we bought a whole nother donor truck. It just seemed like the best bet, considering for about a third of what we bought the donor truck for, we could have bought another used harness that could have had the same kind of issues or had been cut or who knows what. So it's just better to start with something that you know ran. There are a couple plugs that we need to clean up. There are a few things that we are going to simplify, but for the most part, it's going to be an OEM harness. Now, one of the plus sides to going through the entire harness is everything is labeled. So even once we have everything sheathed and covered, when you pull back that sheathing, there's going to be a label on there telling you this goes where, what is this for? So if you were to come through later on and unplug things, you'd be able to really kind of pinpoint where everything goes and put it back without having to guess like we were in the last harness. We're also going to be finishing up the brake lines back here. We do have the brake wheel cylinders coming, so when they get here, we're going to go ahead and route our brake lines and get those finalized. We're also going to go ahead and run our fuel lines underneath and make sure everything is secure under there. And then we do have to do some exhaust work as well. So on the exhaust over here, if you look way back in there, right about there, there's an O2 sensor bung. Now this O2 bung just barely clears the bottom side there. So what we're going to do is we're going to lop that one off. We don't need it. We're going to fill it up. There's one right here that we're going to use. This is where the factory location is. There's actually another one that kind of faces back. We're just going to go ahead and cap that one off because we're not going to be using it for anything. In that one video, right before we put the engine in, we did go ahead and replace all the vacuum lines in here. There are some vacuum lines that are extra long just because I wanted to not risk cutting them too short. We do have our heater core lines, our brake booster line, everything's kind of set up in here. So that's going to be really easy for us to come back through and go ahead and lay our harness in here. We're probably not going to finalize the harness until we verify everything works. Then we're going to go ahead and take everything back off, button up any loose ends that we need to, make sure everything is tight, and all of the new sheathing is going to keep everything protected for a long time. Down in here, we also need to go ahead and secure our clutch slave line that runs right down in there. We're just going to put it on a little bracket and it should be good to go. So I just wanted to get this little mini update out there. Pretty much today we just blew the whole truck apart. Like I said, got everything ready to go. It's sitting in the other garage. We will start getting those things kind of prepped for paint off camera, since we'll be doing it in another portion that's not really well lit, and we're really just going to be doing some light sanding because once all the wiring is done on here and we get the fuel cell in and get all that hooked up, ideally what I'd like to do is be able to fire this thing up and drive it out, and then we can go ahead and get those body panels back in here, get the black base coat down, get the truck assembled, and then go ahead and spray the whole truck at the same time. I will be filming some of this wiring that I'm going to be doing. It'll probably be a lot of just time-lapse stuff. This is pretty tedious and it does take a long time, but the good part about wiring is you could be out here doing it as late as you want because it's not loud. Well, sometimes it's not loud. And then, if you keep it low-key, you get a lot of work done. Normally when I'm doing wiring, I put in 10-hour days just because I get kind of wrapped in. I want to get certain sections done. So anyway, we'll get some of that stuff filmed. I hope you guys enjoyed the last update. Tell me what you guys think about the flares. I think they look really cool. I think when everything's painted and assembled, I think that's gonna look really good. We get the wheels in here. So, but let me know what you guys think. Good or bad, I'm open to hearing what you guys got to say about it. There was a cool over fender I was thinking about doing in the rear. There's a kid on Instagram. I'm sure he's not a kid, I'm sure he's a guy on Instagram. He makes some really cool stuff for the D21s, and his wide bodies are pretty cool. I was thinking about running that rear fender and that front fender if later on when we go to paint I decide that the flares that we picked up aren't really something I want to run. So I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you guys have a great start to the week. and I will catch you guys in the next video. Thank you everybody for watching. We got 113 subscribers. That's really crazy. I appreciate every single one of you. I think it's really cool that you guys enjoy watching the stuff that I do, so thank you. I appreciate it. I would like to get some merch going kind of soon. Not that it's like anything special, but out of the 113 subscribers I have, if anybody wants something and we make like a bulk batch, just hit me up and I'll probably send you something just for being awesome. So until the next one, peace.